What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Lamonts G Custom Live Show, the number 3 podcast. I'm apologize in advance. The pollen is out, even though we had a rain. The pollen is out full force, and I'm sneezing, wheezing, and everything else is killing me. And we just got started, so if I have to pause or stick my head out or whatever, wipe my nose, please forgive me. It's that time of year. So I'm gonna talk about something that I saw this morning. Actually, I don't like copying anybody else's work, material, etc. But I have to talk on this. So it was some guy, I think he was a minister or some kind of faith, guy of faith, and he has been in the last 5 months all over the world. And he stated that, and by the way, I get this from one source, The Righteous Perspective, a guy out of Maryland, I want to say. Check him out. It's good dude, good material. The Righteous Perspective. But this religious guy, he has traveled, all across the world the past 5, 6 months. And he stated that the majority of the people of the world that he has run into, come across, whether it be Africa, the Middle East, Europe, these people are championing the American agenda in its current state. They are championing President Donald Trump and his cabinet and his people he has in certain places doing certain things. They're championing the fact that he's trying to dissolve these regimes, these murderous, killing regimes, like in Venezuela, like in Iran, like in Nigeria, and other places. And he's like, but you get back to the United States and you have a large majority, a large minority that don't want this. They hate it. They hate the fact that the president is trying to destroy dictatorships, exactly what they accuse him of being, that he is stopping murder and mayhem, that he is righting a 47-year wrong with Iran. And if you have millions and millions of foreigners championing this, celebrating it, why do you have people in your own backyard hating you for it? And listen, I've talked about this many, many times, trying my best not to interject politics into everything I say and do when it comes to this platform. But it's absolutely true, man. You know, you have Democrats, you have liberal minded, socialist, communist, Marxist minded people who absolutely hate it. And one thing he brought up, well, you know what? I can't remember if he brought it up, if I heard it somewhere else, but the people with inside the United States of America, go back to 2016, they got tired of the status quo. Installing, voting for a puppet, doing the same crap over and over and over. No matter if it's Democrat or Republican, doing the same crap, people stealing, taking advantage of your tax money, getting rich, and looking down on you, the normal everyday person. Now, I didn't look at it like that when I voted in 15 or 16. I basically looked at it as, this guy is promising to do some stuff that we need done in this country, like closing up the border, lowering taxes, everything that's going to affect my everyday life. Now, we are 10 years, 10, 15, 16 years into this man's political life, even though he has done a whole lot politically in the last 40 years, if you think about it. And I'm not talking about as a politician, I'm talking about as a donor, as a money figure. And knowing what I know about New York, if you want to be successful, you got to wallow around in the gutter a little bit with the Sicilians. Which I listen, I love Sicilians. Don't take this the wrong way. I love Sicilians, but you have to admit, in New York, New Jersey, in Massachusetts, the Sicilians, they are heavy. You know, when it comes to the mob, when it comes to the mafia. So, but my point to all that is that you know, Donald Trump, he did donate to a lot of political figures, Hillary Clinton's, Jesse Jackson, et cetera, goes on and on. And I think he done that because he didn't give a damn about a lot of their political ideology. He done it because, it was going to benefit him and his business or businesses. But then, like, I think a bell rung in his head at some point. And this is just my opinion, so don't take this as law. But I think something wrong in his head and say, hey, I'm donating this money, big time money, for my businesses, for the benefit of my businesses. But when it comes to the people, these policies aren't right. Whether it be the city of New York, the state of New Jersey, and the country itself, these policies aren't benefiting the people. Matter of fact, it's turning our society into something that we don't recognize. And I mean that's absolute fact. That's why he said he wants to turn this country back to the golden age when people got up, they went to work, they raised their families, they they benefited from certain things politically and economically. Every listen, was it a utopia? No, but it was a beautiful time to live. And listen, you had pockets that where people just didn't want to do right. And you see that in everyday life. Listen, I was at the grocery store and I saw these individuals, and God bless their soul. I can only pray for them. I don't want to put them down, but they just looked like they didn't want to work. They looked like they just didn't want to achieve anything in life. They just wanted to exist. Having babies, on food stamps, on social programs, and just existing. And you have people like that. You do. And being in law enforcement, 16, 17 years, I saw it a whole lot, probably more than your average person. But anyway, getting back on topic. So I think that's why President Trump says he make America great again. Make it where you had the ability to go out and work and achieve and made your home, your community, your city, your state a better place for your children than it was for you. But see, you got liberal minded people, Democrats, socialists, Marxists. They don't see that and they don't understand that. They turn what he said is make America great again. You want to take us back to slavery. You want to go back to Jim Crow. Listen, these Democrats, they're disgusting, they're evil, but they're smart. And when you go to using words, they know how to get to a large majority of unintelligent people. And I'm sorry to say that, but it's absolute fact. They can get to a large majority of unintelligent people with their word salads, with their a word, their wordsmiths. as I heard on a great movie. They are wordsmiths. And when you go to these Marxist educational centers, and I'm not talking about just your Harvards and your Cornells. I'm talking about the schools that are in Cuba and Tennessee. That's all they do is teach Marxism and socialism. And I've said this a million times. A coworker of mine, he went to Jackson State, but he is a purebred socialist. He wasn't raised like that. Oh, excuse me. Oh, Jesus, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm gonna try my best to edit that out. But he wasn't raised as a socialist Marxist, but he is one. And when it comes to companies, making profits, he look at that as corporate greed. Well, if our society, if our people are to work, their companies have to make profits. They have to, in order to keep the business going, pay its employees. They have to live, and I have to admit, a lot of them live lavishly. But listen, it's their company, their money. But in order for that company to keep going, for the employee to make money, to put food in their kids' mouth, keep a roof over their kids' head, that company has to make a profit. That's why you see in a lot of companies now in New York and on the West Coast, Washington, California, they're moving. They're moving to Florida. They're moving to Texas. But the sad thing about it, a lot of them are bringing the politics with them, and that's a bad thing. But I know why they want to get out of these hellholes, because they're being robbed. You know, I want to say it's Washington State, or it's either Washington State, Chicago, or New York, but they're proposing a 13 to 26% rate increase on taxes over $1 million. I think I want to say. Just think about that. If you had $100, now you're counting on that $100 to buy groceries, pay a couple of bills, put a few dollars in your pocket, get you some cigarettes or some whatever, some beer, whatever. But out of that $100, they're gonna take $36, $36 to $40 out of that money. Think about that, because you have to bring it down to a lower scale to understand what these people are going through. These people who earn more than $1 million a year, they're going to take 36% of that, 13 to 26%. Yeah, 13 to 26% of that, and in some cases, it might even be 36%. I might be getting the numbers wrong, but I'm not finna get in a rant over taxes. But just think about this: you make a certain amount of money, they're gonna tax the hell out of you. So you make $1 million, you ain't no millionaire, because you finna get half of it to your local government, your local and state governments, not federally, which they're gonna take their chunk too, but your local and your state government's gonna get 13 to 26%. Then think about this: let's just say you make 10 million a year, and you die. In some states, they're gonna get half of that because of the death tax. And I think it's 2 or 3 states that done increased their death tax. That's a conversation for a different day when it comes to taxes and the theft. But I just want to bring that into this conversation for the simple fact that when you have a president that's trying to kill all of that, not really kill it, but to bring it back down to where we can live comfortably. Yeah, we're gonna pay our taxes, but we're not gonna be robbed. Of our hard work. Whether you're a business owner, a corporate owner, a corporate CEO, or just a regular employee, you know. And then they try to get you with overtime and tips, and he ran on this, no overtime on tips, no overtime. I mean, no taxes on tips, no tax on overtime. And I'm sorry, those running, sinus is killing me. But you have an individual who's traveling the world, and I saw this podcast this morning, and he's telling it on his platform that the world is celebrating, even in pockets, the liberal minded people in Europe, the liberal minded people in other countries, even though they're liberal minded, they are championing the fact that the the leader of the free world is trying his best to bring things back down to normal. And how many people here are going to listen to that? How many people are going to, understand that? And like I said, when it comes to, I can't speak on people in other countries because I haven't lived abroad. I haven't lived in Japan. I haven't lived in Puerto Rico or Venezuela or Chile. I've never lived in these places, so I don't know your everyday person, the way their mindset, the way they think, the way they put together and solve problems. But I do know the majority in this country, and what I mean by that, Joe Blow in Coonamcook, Kentucky is no different than Joe Blow in Coonamcook, California. They may live in different areas, but that particular type of person gonna have that same mindset. And the overwhelming majority in this country have been radicalized, and it's by design. Don't ever think this is not by design. It's by design. And why would you want your own people to fail? Why would you want your own country to fail? Think about that. Because if the people of Nantucket, Ohio is thriving, the people in Atlanta, Georgia should be thriving. The people of Orlando, Florida should be thriving. The people in Lincoln, Nebraska should be thriving. Because when I wash my hands, you wash your hands, we wash the dirt away, and we all prosper. But you got people by design in this country that want this country and its people to fail. Why in Nigeria and Iran, if they're slaughtering their own people? See, that's no different. Because I promise you, if these same people who want this country and its people to fail could kill them, they would. They would. Why else would you allow illegals by the millions and millions come in and invade this country? Why would you allow? Just think about this. The United States Coast Guard and military is destroying drug ships, off the Atlantic coast, the Gulf Coast, and the Pacific. I've been on this earth 53 years, and you telling me that nobody never saw this? You telling me that the technology just now appeared to see these drug boats bringing the dope in? No, man. It's been movies about this. These kingpins in Miami and other places, they are. This is what they've done for years. And don't get it wrong now. Dope has come, in from other places. I've been personally been a part of an operation where we detained, or I shouldn't say we, an individual was detained from Jamaica, Dominican Republic, somewhere, but he had in his body enough dope to kill thousands of people. He was wrapped up, he ingested it all, and they timed this perfectly. When that plane touched down, he got to a certain checkpoint, and he got out of there. His bowels should have been moving within the next 2 or 3 hours to dump all that product. And he dumped it actually in the interrogation room or office. I want to say in South Florida, So it was X-rayed and recovered. So dope has gotten this country many, many ways, but you're just not telling me that all these speedboats and vessels, from Venezuela and Colombia and all these places are just now being detected. Nah, get the heck out of here, man. Not believing it. Not believing it at all. So when you have an individual telling you that the world is celebrating your president, his administration, and the people who live in this country are not, it makes me mad. It infuriates me. But as a Christian, I have to pray for these people, man. I have to put my hands together and say a prayer that some way, somehow, I know these people are evil. They're full of demons, but that some way, somehow, they can overcome that evil and join the rest of us, because we want a free and prosperous society. And listen, I'll tell you this many, many times. I thank the Lord 100 million times for my upbringing, where I was brought up at, my surroundings, my circumstances. And even in this present day, I don't have to worry about what's going to happen to me when I go outside that door and get in my car. Could it be a freak accident on the road? Yeah, could be. But to walk out of my front door, I don't have to worry about getting shot, getting robbed. I don't have to worry about so many things that many of Americans has to worry about. I go back to something that we touched on three months ago. But no, 2 months ago. May have been longer than that. May have been 6 months ago. But a lady in Memphis, she started crying and said, "Thank you." For the first time, she's been in this certain area of Memphis, her kids could go outside and play without any fear. And some lady said the same thing that lived right outside of Washington, D.C. For the first time, her kids could go outside and play. Think about that. That was never a thought when I was growing up and where I grew up at. Now, I knew I grew up in the country, what people could consider the country, the sticks, the boonies, but we never had to think about that. Now, friends of mine right up the road in Anniston, if you lived in Cooper Homes, Glen Alley, Constantine, yeah, you had to worry about that. It wasn't a. And listen, when I got divorced, I lived in Constantine. I had to. I didn't want to be on the street or be homeless. But in mine got me an apartment with the public housing development, and I lived there for a year before I bought my house. And even though you had your shootings, your robbings, and others, I never feared, man. But we have to get behind our president, and we have to make this country great again. A lot of people are sacrificing their life now with the conflict in Iran, and God bless them. Our prayers go out to them, but they're doing their part as servicemen and women to get rid of this evil that has affected us for over 47 years. And I thank them for that, and I'm praying for them. And just the men and women, as you see, that I celebrate all the time, the men and women behind the badge. The good men and women behind the badge. You got some bad ones, but we're talking about the good men and women behind the badge. Um, that sacrifice their lives every day on the street to keep us safe. I wore my badge for 16 years, y'all. But more than that, for the past 27 years, I've been a public servant, and I have enjoyed every second. Now, I can't wait till I retire, but we do, as public servants, we do not out of selfishness. but out of righteousness. And that's the way I look at this country. We got a president, and I go back to what I said a little bit earlier. In 2016 and in 2024, we voted for a man that was not a puppet, that wasn't in anybody's pocket. He was a self-made billionaire and didn't need any money from anybody to run his campaigns, to use him as a puppet. And he basically said, if I campaign on something, damn it, I'm going to do it because I don't owe anybody. And see, that's why the left, the liberal Democrats, that's one reason they hate this man. They can't control him. They cannot control him. And that's dangerous for these people because they want 100% full control. Go back to COVID. I remember, and we talked about this, but I remember, you go into some stores, man, they will slam the door in your face if you didn't have a mask on. You could go to the liquor store without a mask and get in a line, being a few feet from each other, but you couldn't go to church and be spread out. The doors of the churches were not open, but you could go to a liquor store. You could go to a hemp store and get your hemp, get your Delta 8, Delta 9, or whatever it is. But you couldn't go to church. That's control, people. That is control. You can't go be amongst your brothers and your sisters to serve the Lord, but you can go get some dope and you can go get some liquor. That's control. And when it comes to the liberal-minded, socialist, Marxist-minded people, there are many forms of control, but they can't control Donald J. Trump. Period. And that's why they hate this man. They hate him. They hate him. They hate him. But I pray that they will find it in their heart to love and to get behind this man, to get behind us as conservative Christians, as Christian conservatives. I pray that they get behind us so we can make this country great again. So we can make our lives and our children's lives and our grandchildren's lives great. Not subpar, not status quo, but great. I'm gonna say this, then I'm gonna get the heck up out of here. So Trump initiated the I can't remember the name of it. The what is it? That if your kid is born in a certain period of time, like right now, I guess through 2026, 2027, 2028, Trump accounts. That's it. That the government will put a little money in, you put some money in, you can keep putting money in. That money's going to grow. It's going to increase in the interest. And by the time that kid is 18 or 21, you're going to have a pretty good chunk of change. And they won't have to struggle working at, trying to go to school and working a third shift job, struggling to make ends meet and try to survive. They have a great start. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. And like I said in a previous podcast, I'm putting some money into account for my youngest daughter, even though she's 16, but she'll have something. She'll have a start. And honestly, I don't think that's necessary because her mom, as long as her mom's living, and I hope she lives a long time, she won't have to worry for nothing. She won't. And that's a beautiful thing. I'm not saying it like it's bad, but she won't have to worry for that. But I do want my daughter to be self-sufficient and independent, and to know what it is to work. To put in work. But I don't want her to struggle like her mother did, like I did, like her sister and brother's mama did, because I could vouch for my two oldest kids, mom and myself, we even though we had good breaks and we had good structure, we didn't have to worry about who was gonna watch our kids. My parents was right there, but we did struggle. So we don't want our kids and our grandkids to struggle. We don't. We want to put them in a better position. So listen, let me get on up out of here. We're dealing with some terrible weather right now, and then you'll know what day I'm talking about once I get this edited and uploaded. You'll know. So okay, he was talking about that day because it's terrible right now. So, but anyway, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, like always, we praise Him. We give Him His praise, and I love you and I appreciate you. And you be blessed, and I'll see you next time.